Hey mama, welcome back to another episode of Doula Tea Talks, where I spill the tea on pregnancy, postpartum, and everything in between. My name is Maya, and I am a certified birth and postpartum doula, as well as a certified prenatal yoga instructor. If you've had a previous C-section delivery and are dreaming of a vaginal birth, I got you. Today, we will be talking about my top 5 tips to have a successful VBAC. Now, if you're not familiar with what a VBAC is, it stands for Vaginal Birth After Cesarean. While every woman's birth journey is unique to her, preparedness and support makes a world of a difference. My first tip for you would be to ensure that your care provider is VBAC friendly, not just VBAC tolerant. And when I say care provider, I'm referring to either your OB or your midwife. Let's talk about the differences between a VBAC tolerant care provider and a VBAC friendly care provider. The best way to find out whether your care provider is one or the other is to ask them questions. The first question I recommend asking your care provider is, what are your VBAC success rates? A VBAC friendly care provider will say something such as, we have a high success rate, anywhere from 70% onwards. Now, a VBAC tolerant care provider will say something such as, we don't track that, or we don't have many successful VBACs. That is a red flag. The second question you would want to ask is, what happens if I go past 40 or 41 weeks? A VBAC friendly care provider will say something such as, well, we'll closely monitor you and your baby. As long as you guys are both doing fine, we are fine waiting. Now, a VBAC tolerant care provider will say, we'll just schedule a C-section. If you hit 40 weeks, we're just going to schedule you. That is a red flag. The third question you should be asking is, what happens if my labor is progressing slowly? A VBAC friendly care provider will say something such as, we'll be patient and we'll wait, or maybe they'll say, we'll use a little bit of Pitocin. Now, a VBAC tolerant care provider will say, oh, we'll just schedule you a C-section. We'll just get you into the OR. That is a red flag. The fourth question I recommend asking is, what is your induction policy? A VBAC friendly care provider will say, we have patients and we typically wait and see how it progresses on its own before we go to interventions. But if needed, we know how to safely support a VBAC induction. Now, you can probably guess it. A VBAC tolerant care provider will say, we'll just go straight on to surgery. Or they'll say, it's not safe for you to use Pitocin. It's not safe to do an induction. That's not 100% true, so it's a red flag. And lastly, of course, you want to ask them, are you guys comfortable and trained in supporting VBACs? A VBAC-friendly care provider will say, yes, we're trained, we're prepared, we have done numerous VBACs, we are ready for another one. A VBAC-tolerant care provider will say something such as, we don't really do them, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Or, yeah, we don't really like to do them, but I mean, we could do it. That's a red flag, babes. Find a new care provider, okay? If you ask any of these questions, and your care provider answers leaning towards tolerant and not so much friendly, find a new care provider. This is the most important thing. This is why it's tip number 1. Because if your care provider doesn't truly support your decision to have a VBAC, you are set up for failure. And even more so, regardless of the answers of these questions, always follow your intuition. Even if your care provider is saying all the right things, but something still feels a little off to you, trust your intuition. You have it for a reason. Use it, okay? Not only do you have womanly intuition, but now you have motherly intuition. Don't ignore your intuition. Find a new care provider. The second tip I have for you is to hire a birth doula. And of course, I am biased being a birth doula myself. But it is seriously so important to have a birth doula. The reason being is that we're able to provide you with informational support, physical support, emotional support, and even mental support. VBACs are not just a casual little thing, and I mean no birth is a casual little thing. Especially for VBACs though, you're going to have all these options thrown at you, and sometimes you're going to have options before labor, but most of the time options are going to be thrown at you during labor. Now, when you're in labor, you're kind of mentally in labor land, and it's kind of hard to really make clear decisions because there's a lot going on. Not saying that you're not capable of making these clear decisions, but when you're experiencing a contraction, when your emotions are high, when you feel like you're just going through it, having options and information thrown at you is sometimes overwhelming. So it's really helpful to have a birth doula because not only can we walk through these options with you before you get to labor, but we can also help you during labor, as well as help your partner during labor. That way, you guys know that your voice is truly being heard and that your wishes are being carried out. It's also so helpful to have a doula because we're able to provide hands on support. So, obviously, when you're having contractions, we're able to help you cope through those contractions with hands on techniques as well as verbal techniques and, providing your partner with ways to help you as well. I find a lot of the times dads want to be helpful and, they want to be there for their partner, but they don't really know what to do. So they often find themselves just kind of standing in the corner observing. There's nothing more infuriating as a laboring woman than to see your partner standing in the corner not doing shit. Okay? Let's be so for real. So having a birth doula is for you, but it's also for your partner as well. We are here to support both of you guys during this gigantic transition. Tip number 3 is to allow your body to go into labor spontaneously. Spontaneous labor decreases the need for medical intervention and increases the chances of a successful VBAC. What it really comes down to is trusting your body. Your body knows when it's ready to birth your baby. Just be patient and wait. The 4th tip I have for you is if you are planning to get the epidural, I would suggest that you wait as long as you can. Ideally, you would want to be at least at 6 to 7 centimeters before getting the epidural. Reason being is sometimes the epidural can slow things down. I always tell my clients that the epidural and Pitocin are best friends. And although you can use one without the other, oftentimes if you have one, you're going to want or need the other. So the epidural sometimes can make things go quicker because when you have the epidural, you can't feel anything down here. So naturally, you're going to be more relaxed and you're going to dilate, hopefully quicker. But sometimes the epidural can slow things down. And this is why I say every body is different. There's no one way to know how something's going to affect somebody versus another person. Every single person is different and every single experience is unique. But sometimes the epidural can slow down the labor process to a point where you might need Pitocin. This is why I say it's so important to wait to get the epidural because the further along you are, the less likely you will be needing Pitocin or something else to, push your labor along. If you do end up getting the epidural, it is super important that you switch positions every 20 to 30 minutes. Oftentimes, nurses are very helpful in doing this, but this is also where having a doula comes in handy. Sometimes doulas have suggestions and positions that nurses have never even heard of. I recently, this past week, was just at a birth where I offered a position and the nurse looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, babes, you've never heard of this position before? So I literally had to Google it and show it to the nurse and we were able to do it. But super important, have a doula as well because we bring extra knowledge that nurses might not have at the time. And the 5th tip I have for you is to prepare, not only physically, but mentally as well. Oftentimes we prepare above and beyond when it comes to the physical aspect of things, and we completely neglect the mental and emotional aspect of stuff. In regard to preparing physically, of course, I'm going to suggest practicing prenatal yoga, which you could find on this channel, or even Google search prenatal yoga near me. There's often a class that might be available. If not, though, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, babes, and we'll get you some free prenatal yoga. Another way to practice, preparing physically would be to go on walks, to squat every day. I always recommend doing 40 to 50 squats a day. This is to help prepare your muscles for labor, because I mean, it is a marathon, it is not a sprint. So just like you would prepare for a marathon, you gotta prepare for birth, especially if it's a VBAC. And lastly, when it comes to physical preparedness, I recommend looking up birth positions and practicing those daily so that you're mentally already getting comfortable doing these and you're already knowing what your options are. Okay, now, mental preparation. I recommend listening to VBAC stories and birth stories in general. Find a podcast that you enjoy. I recommend the Natural Birth podcast. There's also the Positive Birth podcast. These podcasts are great for positive birth stories. Fill your mind with the positivity because oftentimes people want to tell you their awful, horrible birth stories, and we just don't need that bullshit. And seriously, like when we really look at all births and really take all births into consideration, there's so many more positive birth stories than there are negative birth stories. But there's something about us humans that we just gravitate towards the big, dramatic, awful stories, and that's the stories that people tell, and that's the stories that people often hear. So I definitely recommend seeking out the positive stories because the positive always outweighs the negative, and to fill your mind with the positivity so that you can train your brain to know that you can have a positive birth experience as well. Another way to mentally prepare is to practice affirmations every day. Saying things to yourself either verbally or mentally, such as, I trust my body, I trust my baby, or every contraction brings me closer to meeting my baby. I recommend that you use these during labor, of course, but also practice these before labor. Because, like I said, labor is a marathon. We can't just one day decide we're going to do something, because if you're not practicing it, you're definitely not going to use it once you're in labor land. And lastly, super, super, super important, release any fear, doubt, or negative thoughts that you have from your last birth experience. You can do this through journaling, talking with a friend, talking to a therapist or a counselor, and of course, talking with your doula. Because you are preparing for this birth experience differently than you did last time, you already know that this birth experience is going to be better than the last one before. It's so important to remember that you are not your last birth experience and that you and your body are more than capable of having a successful vaginal delivery. Start telling yourself these things. Even if you don't believe it when you first start saying it, say it anyways. I am capable of having a successful vaginal delivery. Or, I am capable of having a successful VBAC. My body is capable of having a successful VBAC. My body is capable of having a successful VBAC. It sounds silly. I don't care. Say it with me. My body is capable of having a successful VBAC. Let's do it again. My body is capable of having a successful VBAC. Okay, one more time. I didn't hear you. My body is capable of having a successful VBAC. Start saying it and start believing it, babe, because it's true. If this video helped you, give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below, and share it with a mama who could use this information. If you are located in the DFW Metroplex, I would love to invite you to check out my website, mamalotusservices.com. You can book a free consultation for birth support, as well as a free consultation for postpartum support. As always, I am wishing you the very best, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!